few places where the overflow of people that people have to leave because there was no space. So there seems to be quite a bit of interest, not only in Western Europe, which has been interest for a long time, but now also in Eastern Europe, there seems to be interest and sense of looking for something, So anyway, and I have one instant. That kind of instant happens when you are traveling. I was traveling from Bern, from Switzerland, Bern to Italy, a place called Padova, a small city. And I've trained from Bern to Milano, and Milano to, I have to change in Milano to Padova. And the train in Italy are not so reliable that I found in the past, in terms of the time, So we're not sure also this time, but the train that left from the Bern, it came at the right time. Because if it was delayed, then I could miss the next connecting train because there wasn't much time. Maybe 40 minutes we had. And it came at the right time and went. And just before we arrived in Milano, it stopped. I don't know what happened exactly. Nobody seems to know. And also, I don't know Italy. And it stopped there around 2 hours, Something must happen. I don't know exactly. And then of course, definitely, I missed the train, my first train. So then I got another train later. So I tried to text the people, but then it was working. My roaming was working while I was in Switzerland. I was texting. And there it wasn't working. I tried to call, it wasn't working. And so anyway, so I took a train, and there, of course, there was no one, because they were waiting for the first train. And so I thought maybe I should get somewhere I can get a wireless. And in the train station, I went to the few restaurants. No one has wireless there. And I didn't have the phone number of the person who's picking me up. Otherwise, I could ask someone to help me to call. And so then I tried to find, I asked them whether, then I was trying to take a taxi, but then I have the address of the center, but not the people, and the center, no one lived there, And so I asked them, someone, if there is any SIM card that I can find, and then someone told me that I can cross the road and go to the other side of the city, and then I can find, and then I finally found a SIM card, and I put, and then I was able to connect. Then I text, and then Margot was, "Where are you?" And then I told him I'm at the train station and that, and he said, "Wait there, I will come soon." So, and apparently, they have said to the police there, missing, a monk missing in Padova, and also they are looking in Milano as well. So the two places, the police are looking for me. Um, uh, so that kind of instance happens, so that is part of the adventure. One of the adventures that I had during the trip in Europe. And then I went to Nepal. His Swami Dharam also teaching in a Bodh Gaya, but his schedule came very late. So by the time I had booked my ticket to Nepal, so I was in Nepal 2 days, and then I flew to India for his Holiness teachings. And there was around 30,000-40,000 people of the teachings, and enjoy. And I had the opportunity to visit Lama Zopa Rinpoche while in Nepal just before he left, and then also in India. And Gandhi Rinpoche, where he came here before, one of my other teachers, and then Khenso Lobsang Dele, who is also my teachers. So I had the opportunity to pay respect to all my teachers there, and had great teaching from His Holiness as usual, all the time. And I stay with two of my friends, Michael Geshe and Tenchu. We shared a room. So Michael got first, he got cold. And then he recovered, and then two of us got cold. And most people got sick, because it is small place, lot of people, lot of dust, and then people so close, the virus just flowed, and so almost everyone. Some people didn't got sick there, and I saw one of my friends, Geshe Sherab, and he said, "So glad that I didn't get sick." Then he went to Nepal and he got sick because he was carrying the virus, whatever the virus. And some of them went back to South India, and they were sick there. But that is part of when you go to such events like Bodh Gaya, it is expected. Also, it's the time as well. It's the winter cold time. So the winter flu, cold is always there. And so it's cold. So many people dusty. And His Holiness also got sick one day. He had to cancel the teaching one day. And but yeah, suddenly His Holiness canceled and said he wasn't feeling well, and we didn't know what was happening. Maybe we thought maybe it was the flu. But apparently the next day the teaching started, and he said actually he had throwing up and vomiting very badly that day. But he says maybe through all the prayer for others and everything, somehow the next day he feel very well enough to continue the teachings. But it seems he was carrying that the virus, because recently when he was in Delhi, when he went there in the hospital and admitted for a few days, it was a lung infections from that cold during the Bodh Gaya. So it hasn't fully recovered. And because of that, there was lung infection. That was why he was taken to hospital. So anyway, that was the... So I was teasing Michael, you gave two of us your cold flu, and he said, I gave you, but you gave to His Holiness. make it. And so after the teaching both there, then seven of us, friends, some from India, some from Nepal, we decided to go to a pilgrimage, the holy sites, 8 holy sites of the Buddhas, 8 holy sites. Few of us have done that in 7 years ago, all those sites with another friends. But since we were already there, we wanted to do the close by, we want to do the site. And one of them was very far away, very, very remote. Not a lot of people go because it is very undeveloped, because there isn't much people. It is supposedly the place where Buddha descended from the Tushita after he went to teach for his mother, and so it's almost close to the Delhi, very far away. So we, at the very beginning when we were planning, I said to Tenchola, maybe we'll skip that place this year. But then we found some other friends, they hadn't been there, so we decided to go there too. So for 8 days, we hired a jeep, and 7 of us squeezing, 1 in the front, 3 in the middle, and 3 in the back, and then driver. With the driver is 8 of us. And so we did a pilgrimage, and we all got sick during it was driving 5-6 hours a day, sometimes 7-8 hours from one place to another place. And one of the friends, Tenchola, after two days, he dropped because he was not feeling well at all. All of us got some sick, kind of, I don't know, not sure what it was. Sometimes we had stomach problems, of course, that is normal. And then we all have some kind of headache, almost throwing up. So some days we didn't eat, but anyway, we got sick at the same time. We had laughter, a lot of laughter in those 6-7 hours. We didn't know how it went 6-7 hours because there was so much just being silly. Just being silly like a child, pulling each other's legs, kissing each other's. So we had a wonderful time. And we had a very spend some time in every places to do some practices and dedicate for His Holiness Dalai Lama, long life, and others, gurus, and all others. And so we visited all the 8 holy sites of the Buddhas, and ending in the Lumbini in Nepal, that's where he was born, and then so that was our last stop. And so that was what we did in India. And Nepal, my father was doing a little better than last year. After my mom passed away, my father lost kind of appetite. And so he became very weak, skinny. He was skinny anyway, normally. But then not eating, became very weak. So he wasn't feeling well. But this year, he seems doing a little better. He was eating more. And he's doing better. And all others, families, they are doing okay, relatively. Okay, in samsara, there is always something happening. That is part of the life. That is part of. We can only talk from relative point of view. Relatively, they are okay compared to many others people's challenges, difficulties. But of course, they have their own challenges, difficulties in some way, in different areas, some with the health issues, some with in other areas. But in general, I think they are doing, I would say, okay. And I spent, back and forth with my parent, with my father, my family, and with the monastery, at the monastery. So if I don't stay at the monasteries, the friends, the monk will complain, are you not monk? Are you not supposed to be in the monastery while you are staying at the home? Isn't this your home? And I don't spend enough time with my families. They say, you come here far away and you spend very little time. You spend a lot of time in the monastery, but so you can't satisfy everyone. Even you spend 3 months, my mom used to say, oh, only that much, Or then that is how they feel. If you spend 1 week, 2 weeks, they feel is so little. You spend 1 month, 2 months, still they feel is very little time. So anyway, and becoming very busy once you are there. So many relatives and everyone want to see you, and so of course there's no way I could visit all of them. But like every year, I try to visit those older ones, elder ones. I make all the time, every time, effort to see them, and my aunties, my uncles, and yeah, the cousins. Most of the cousins I didn't have time to visit them. Some of them came to visit me, and so that was. And my brother, the younger brother, the other Geshe who was taking care of my mom for last year, and he was there when my mom passed away, and so he just went to India in Sikkim to teach at one of the Karmapas monastery, Rumdek monastery. So he's there teaching there. Yeah. So he's there and he's doing well. Yeah, and then one of my students from India graduated last year, Geshe. Two of them are graduating this year. And so, yeah, and also trying to help them, support them with their graduations. And then after that, then after Nepal, like always, you don't want to leave, but you have to leave. Not only it was enough for them, it was not enough for me too. But anyway, so then I came to North America, and then I did a tour in North America for 10 weeks in 10 different centers. So starting to feel a little bit tired after being so long on the road all the time. So extremely happy to be back and not be traveling. And definitely also, this is my home now. So definitely, so happy to be back. So I think, yeah, that is more or less with my update of my trip, my schedules. Um, and another thing, one of the question I often get is, which place you like most and all of that. And my answer is, for me, every place is beautiful. It has its own unique in every places, in terms of places. And when you are there for just a short time, it can be enjoyable anyway. I said, when you are even in a more difficult situation, you feel like adventure and enjoy it because you don't have to deal with that every day. It is so I find all places more or less equally enjoyable, beautiful, and of course, people are kind, nice, and also someone was telling me, one of friends from Canada, she was telling that she was in Europe recently to visit some of her family, and she was saying how lovely is, how nice people were and kind, and she doesn't feel that way in Canada where she is. People are kind of isolated and they don't talk with each other. The neighbor doesn't talk much with each other. They doesn't interact much and like that. So I was saying, well, you went there for a visit for families, so everyone is trying to be nice, kind all the time because they don't have to deal the whole time. For when you are visiting for just short time, everyone try to make you as comfortable as possible, as nice as possible. But they can't do that throughout whole years, and they don't have the time and energy to do that. But for a week or 2 weeks, they can put more effort, and people try to do that. So I was telling him maybe that is the why. And similarly, same with me. If they have to put up with me the whole time, maybe that might not be easy. But for a short time, definitely it's more easy to take care of. And so anyway, it has been everyone has been very kind, nice, generous, compassionate, and so. Well, he's saying like 6 months here, and I will be gone 6 months. I will be attending His Holiness teachings. He couldn't complete this year, and even he doesn't complete this year. So still, if he's teaching, then definitely, and definitely, I'm going to Nepal to spend some time with my father and the families, and definitely. End of this year, I'm not going to Europe, but I'm going to Australia, and from Australia I go to India, Nepal, and so, yeah. Yes, please. Yeah, that is good questions. Maybe at this time, maybe this country needs it most. Well, I think now maybe not only here, even in Europe, it is going challenging time. Even in Europe, it is a very challenging time too. It's not only in this country. And they have even more challenging there here from different, not only politically, there is challenges, but from employment, economics, a lot of those European countries are struggling. There is, everyone's worried that Italy is a mess, and if they collapse, it could affect the whole EU. Unlike like Portugal, Greece, which they collapsed, but EU was able to help them because it was small countries, economically not so strong. And Spain, I heard also. But Italy, they say, is in a very, very mess. Not only in a mess, the government who is not willing to listen to EU, They don't want to listen to EU. And they are threatening to pull from the EU if they don't get what they want, So with all of that, there is a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of instability. And then on top of that, then immigrations and all of that, unemployment is high, and with all of that, there is a lot of frustrations, Of course, you can see in UK, the whole situation is a lot of frustration and anger with the whole situation from the both sides, because it's not leading anywhere and continuing. And then also, like as I said, because of the whole unemployment, economics, like in Spain, Italy, people are very frustrated. Also Germany, and this is relatively compared to others, they are doing better. But they were saying everything is collapsing there, They were saying the train are now not on schedule, sometimes and cancels, delay more often than they used to be, and sometimes without proper explanations, people waiting train station for hours and they don't get any information why, whether it's a delay or not, or why, and all of that. They say it doesn't happen that in the past, And they say there's no more nurse from the country. Every nurse is exhausted because so many patients and too little nurse. So like one nurse had to take care of 25 kind of patients like that. And so now they are bringing all the nurse from outside because no one from that country is now willing to go in that, because it's too, the pay are not increasing and the job is much more difficult. So there is, so again, when you look from that, sometimes from outside here is in Europe, it's just fine and good place to be. And this country is, but if you go there and if you really find out what is happening, so basically just to feel gratitude, and thankful, because sometimes we don't feel gratitude and grateful for what we have. Sometimes we will always feel others are better, and other side is better all the time, and this side is the worst place to be. And that is felt everywhere, The European people, probably some of them want to come here, and of course, definitely a lot of in Asia, and vice versa, So anyway, I think when I was asked, I think now what, 6 years ago, 6 years ago, I think maybe, because I came here in 2013. So I was sent invitations by the TNL through FPMT and asked me to consider And when I left New Mexico in 2003, everyone asked me if I could come back. At that time, what I said was, I'm not sure whether I will be a resident teacher anymore, because at that time I wasn't thinking of coming back to West. I was thinking of being in the monastery and doing my own retreat and other things there, But I said, if I do decide to become a resident, then definitely I would come here. That was what I said, because of the connection that I had. That was my first connection with outside of India and Nepal, New Mexico. Somehow I've never heard about Taos, Santa Fe, and after my graduations, Rinpoche sent me there, and so there must be some karmic connections, I guess. And I had that connection with the people here, and at that time I was already traveling and teaching, and so then the center asked if I could. So they said, and they said, we know that you are busy and you are traveling, probably that is what you will be doing, but we'll be more than happy if you can come for 6 months. And that was kind of the agreement we had. And then I wasn't also sure in the long term what will be the best. And I did ask Rinpoche, and Rinpoche did some observation, and Rinpoche said there is some obstacle to do retreat, and so it comes out better to go here, and I follow his advice, and I came here. And even though there have been many centers in Australia, Europe, and also in North America who have asked if I could become the resident teachers. And so far, I have kind of said that I'm busy here. And one of the reasons why I feel is connection, and I feel maybe I could help here by being here to make the center more stable, Of course, impermanent, you never know, Sometimes even the center wish, even I wish, sometimes things doesn't happen. Sometimes things could change. You never know what is waiting, but my intention and motivation is that to be able to help to be the center to be more stable, if there is some stability, like in every organization, if there is some stability, then it doesn't depend on one particular teacher, or it doesn't depend on one particular administrator to continue to function and continue to provide the programs and all of that. But to be more stable, I think there need to be some stability from the teachers and also people who runs the organizations until we reach certain stability, and that is why I'm still here, Yeah, maybe we might have different interpretation of what stable is. But my intention and motivation is that. Also, 2 years ago, Lama Soba Rinpoche asked me if I could consider going to San Francisco, because and Rinpoche said there are 4 centers, and there are 4 centers, and so I can help more with the centers there. But I wrote Rinpoche, I'm happy to go if Rinpoche feel that is the most beneficial. I will follow that, but then I I explain about the situations of the center and why I would like to be here to help to be more stability. And Rinpoche then wrote and said, that's just fine and good, and you can stay there. And so that was the, yeah. So that is, so maybe, yeah, seems like. And so then the second turning wheel of the Dharma, the Mahayana teachings, is built on the first turning wheel of the Dharma. On top of that, then not only you refrain from harming others, from 10 non-virtuous actions and get 10, but on top of that, then trying to engage in not only not refrain from harming, but being even more beneficial and more help in many different levels. And so then the emphasis very much come on Bodhisattva mind. And Bodhisattva mind and the practice of 6 perfections or 10 perfections on the basis of Bodhisattva mind. And also in terms of the spiritual ultimate goal is to achieve fully enlightenment so that you can be most benefit to each and every sentient beings. So the goal is more higher, not only individual freedom and liberation from suffering and cause of suffering, but also in order to achieve your highest potential, fully enlightenment, so that you can be the greatest benefit. That also in terms of the practice, while you are on the path, also the emphasize very much on the practice, such as perfection, in order to be more beneficial and help on others. And also not only to overcome the delusion, but also to overcome the subtle obscuration, the imprint of the delusion as well in terms of overcoming. And so then the practice is more developed further, go a little bit more higher, develop more further for those who have that kind of inspirations, inclinations, ripening of the mind, and that. Then, when you have the foundations of that is explained into the sutra of Mahayana sutras, the foundation of renunciation, pure renunciation, bodhicitta mind, and wisdom realizing emptiness. On the basis of that foundation, then those who are interested in and who have inclination to the Vajrayana teaching, then again in Vajrayana, then they teach about how to utilize the subtle mind by working with your channels, chakras, wind energies, and drops, and some other practices in relation to that. And so, but those practices become profound only when you have those good foundation of the 3 principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness. If you don't have those foundations, then Vajrayana practice is not as profound as it is explained. But it becomes very profound if you have those foundations. And so then the Vajrayana. So that is how, in terms of the different teachings that Buddha gave, the sequences of that, that is how. And all those teachings, different teachings that Buddha gave, all those teachings, the point, all those teachings is to subdue our mind. That is all it's about. Whatever form of teaching, whatever form of practice we might be interested or doing, all has to be a method or training to subdue our mind. Because it is our mind which is the source of problem for ourselves and source of problem for others. Unsubdued mind is the source of that. On the other hand, the subdued mind, disciplined mind, is the source of happiness for ourselves and source of happiness for others. So, whatever form of practice we do, if it helps us to reduce those negative emotions, disturbing emotions, then they are true Dharma. Then it becomes true Dharma. And form can be on different form. It doesn't have to be even in that you find in text. Even new form of meditation practice, as long as it helps us to reduce those negative emotions, that is Dharma. You know. But if it doesn't help us to reduce those negative emotions, then whatever form of that you are doing is not true Dharma. You might be meditating, you might be doing whatever form of prostration, reciting mantra, visualizations, analytical meditation, whatever form, if it is not being antidote, if it's not becoming a way to reduce our negative emotions, then it is not being true Dharma, your practice. And so that is the key that we have to understand. Doesn't matter the form, different form for different peoples. For some people, certain form are more, like for example, I hear students, people saying, for some people when they get upset and angry, they take a big breath and bringing their mind to the breath help them to kind of quiet their mind. But I also hear some people, it doesn't help them that they recite mantras and it helps them to be more calm and kind. It's a different, I don't know, maybe some kind of different predisposition, something, with that. And for some kind of analytical meditations. So, it is unique. And that is what we have to understand, Sometimes we tend to become very narrow and rigid, because I find certain practice beneficial to me, then I think that is the case for everyone. Any particular practice I don't find effective to me, then I believe that it is not effective to anyone. And believe this is garbage, useless. It is not as simple as that, just like medications, different medicine response different to different people, even though they have same kind of a disease, different medicine response different according to the immune system, how strong their immune system and all of that, Even in just kind of allergy, for some people, Claritin help, but for some people it doesn't help. For some, another medication help, even though it is the same problem, allergy. Same thing, practice is same, and sometimes we tend to become too fixed, of that. And so it is important to understand that those different teachings and practice and different form of practice are effective for different individuals and beneficial. As long as all those practice and teaching become a way to reduce our negative emotion, a way to increase and improve our positive emotions, that is the key. That is the key. And that is the essence of all the Buddha's teachings. Whether it is a Vajrayana teaching, or there is Mahayana teachings, and Theravadan teaching, or practice, all those different practices, they all are given, those practice or taught, given in order to reduce those negative emotions and to increase the positive emotions and to become more enlightened. As long as it does that, if someone comes with new another technique, that's absolutely fine and good. If some technique is helpful to someone, is not helpful to you, then it doesn't mean it's required to you. Whatever is more effective to you, you try to apply that. And so that is the. We always have to, whatever form of practice we are doing, whatever form of practice we are doing, is always important to connect that with this, the essence all the time. Why am I doing this form of practice? How is it related to reducing the delusions? How is it related to increase the positive emotions? Connecting that is important. Otherwise, we try to meditate to reduce our negative emotions, and then because someone is making noise, we get more upset. Do you get it? So your meditation becomes source of anger instead of being a way to reduce anger. And that could be anything. I remember, I think I have shared this story, I remember when I was in India, I was trying to do my practice. Every day I had a certain time practice, and I was trying to do very kind of serious, trying to do the practice very seriously, feeling that I shouldn't be distracted or talking, and when I do, I should be very serious and this and that. And apparently I had a friend next, and it's the time when he has his tea, afternoon tea. And he comes and said to me, would you like to have tea? While I was doing practice, because it is his time. So he wanted to offer the tea. And first time you go, after that happened for a long time, then my mind started to become kind of, negative, and feel like that instead of appreciating, and I feel like he's disturbing my practice, felt like that he was disturbing my practice. And then, you create your own stories, around that. Then it took time before I recognized what was going on. It took me time before I recognized what was going in my mind and how I was interpreting and how I was disturbed by someone's kindness and generosity. And because I'm attached to this idea of serious practice, because I was so attached to that I wanted to do so kind of perfectly or whatever in that particular way, So then when I noticed that, and why am I doing my practice? What is the purpose of doing my practice? Going back to that I'm trying to say, that going back to the essence. What is the purpose of my practice? Why am I doing that? And then, I'm doing this practice in order to reduce and overcome those negative emotions. That is why I'm doing. Is it that being the case now? Is that being the case? That is not the case. Instead of reducing the anger, and once I saw that, the connection, when I saw the connection, why I'm doing this practice, and how that is leading to another kind of result, then I was able to kind of relax. I was able to relax and think it's not a big matter. It's not a big deal if he comes and say, you want to have a tea? I can just say no, thank you, or I can go and have the tea, and after that I can come and do my practice. It might take a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10, 15 minutes more, but I still have time to do my, so I don't have to fuel my anger and disturbing. And when I start doing that, then he can come, say you want to have tea, and I can go and join and appreciate his kindness, generosity, and not being disturbed. And so it took me time to recognize that and time to, and then one was to connect the reasons and the essence why I'm doing the practice. And so I think that is very important as to, that is a big kind of opening and learning for me. And every time that whatever form of practice that you do, that always trying to go that and trying to relate with that is important. Trying to relate with that instead of being that as something, a practice, something which is not related with dealing with your delusions. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That black, that got by me. Thank you. So I think, yeah, I think that because I often see, um, my own experience and other people's observing the people's, whatever practice they might be doing, preliminary practices, whether they are doing preliminary practices, whether they are doing pujas, whether they are doing other form of practice, whether it is meditations, uh, different form of meditations, whatever, whether it's visualization meditation, mindfulness meditation, whether it's analytical meditation. Sometimes we get so tight, so uptight with that practice, so uptight with that practice. Instead of being that practice becoming a cause to reduce the negative emotion, it kind of brings the negative emotions. And so I think sometimes it's helpful to recognize and see why I'm doing this practice, so that we don't lose the track. Do you get it? It's like you are trying to do something, to achieve something, and then you lose track, and then you go in total different directions. So always remembering, bringing back to the track. the very purpose of practice. The purpose of practice. Then also, sometimes we also get, because we are so tight, then we also get a lot of nervousness around doing a lot of those things. Again, the practice shouldn't be increasing your nervousness. It should be something decreasing your nervousness. And if it's increasing your nervousness, then there is something that you have to reflect, contemplate, and think about it. And a lot of times, because we have certain clinging to certain outcome, clinging to certain outcome, clinging to shrinking to our reputation, clinging to our self, and clinging to certain outcome and so forth. And so, if we can recognize, then again, maybe we can be able to reduce and whatever that is bothering us, to be less of that, and to be more relaxed, more calm, Because when you are more calm, more relaxed, then you will be able to do the practice better, whatever form of practice. So I think for today, I think that's, and from next week, then we will start the verses from here. And then, just as Katamba Master says, all the Katamba Master says, when things are going easy, looks like a great practitioner. But when the adversary situations come, when challenges and difficulty come, looks like very ordinary beings. That evaluate how good, how much practice. When it's easy, anyone seems like practicing well. It is in those challenging times, difficult time, whatever that difficult time might be. It could be emotional, physical, other external things, on personal level, or with our families, friends, or in the countries, in the world, whatever, whatever those different. When those difficult challenges happen, still to be able to keep your mind calm and more relaxed, and not being overwhelmed by those negative emotions. And so that's the key. And so that is one thing we have to remember. When those difficult challenges come, and if our mind started to behave like ordinary beings, then it is something that we need to think about, and something that means we need to practice more. Practice more. Maybe we don't have enough practice. Maybe when the things are easy, we might think, oh, I don't need more than this practice. I'm doing enough practice. We might say, I'm doing more than enough practice. But when the difficulties comes, then that will let you know whether you need to do more practice, or your practice is enough. And so, in that way, those are the greatest teachings and teachers. In that way, to help us to evaluate and to help us to see where we are in terms of our spiritual progress. And so, yeah, so we'll do the dedications.